So in this video, we are going to discuss two different systems for measuring things. And the first one is the imperial system, and the second one is the SI or the metric system. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to convert between them. Okay, so the imperial system first, you're talking about things like inches, feet, yards, miles, gallons for volume, different things like that. And you're probably familiar with this system because the US still uses it. Canada used to, but we now use what is called the metric system. And when we're talking about the metric system, we're talking about things like meters, centimeters, kilometers, that kind of thing. All right. So because the US, which is our closest neighbor and our closest trading partner, uses the imperial system, and we use the SI system, along with most of the rest of the world. There's very few countries that actually use the imperial system. There are actually three: Liberia, Myanmar, and the United States of America. Those are the three that still use the imperial system. Everyone else uses the SI system. And the premise of the SI system was exactly that they could make an international system. SI stands for Système International. It's French for international system. And the idea is that everybody then would use a common set of measurements so that everybody would be able to communicate with everyone else about what exactly this measurement was or that measurement was. However, getting back to what I was saying, because the US uses the imperial system, we have to know how to convert. All right, so we have to know how to convert between different metric system units like centimeters, meters, kilometers. We have to know how to convert between different length measurements in the imperial system, like feet to inches and inches to feet, feet to yards, yards to miles, that kind of thing. And then we have to know how to convert from something in the imperial system to something in the metric system. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about with this video. How do I convert those units? And you're going to have to use a conversion factor. Okay, so there are a whole bunch of them here. And these are the conversion factors for the different measurements. So you can look at, for example, 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters, 1 meter is 100 centimeters, kilometers 1,000 meters. And then, so that's within the international system, the System International. Then you have the imperial system. A foot is 12 inches, a yard is 3 feet, a mile is 1,760 yards. And then you have SI2 imperial. So now you can go from millimeters to inches, or centimeters to inches, or meters to yards. And then you have a bunch of different conversions for, excuse me, for mass. Okay, you can see them there, and for volume. So we're going to refer back to these conversion tables to tell us how to go from one unit to another. All right, and they're derived from just measuring something in feet and measure something in inches and saying, okay, that means that 1 foot is equivalent to 12 inches. Okay. Now in the SI system, we use base 10. Okay, and then we just use prefixes. So you start with your base unit, and as you get bigger, you go deca, and then hecto, and then kilo. So a decameter, or a hectometer, or a kilometer, or a kilometer. Okay, those go up by 10. They get bigger by 10. Okay, and then as you go down to smaller units, you get the decimeter, the centimeter, and then finally the millimeter. And of course, there's more than these. Okay, but it's a pretty easy model to convert from one unit to the next because it's just a factor of 10. You either multiply by factors of 10 or you divide by factors of 10, which is why it was developed. You will notice, if you go back up here, that converting between the SI system units is not the same. So 1 foot is 12 inches. So if you want to go to inches to feet, you have to multiply by 12. But then you go from feet to yards, you only have to multiply by 3. And then you go from yards to miles, you have to multiply by 1,760. So it's not a system of just exact values each step of the way. It's a little weird. All right, a pint is 16 ounces, but a quart is only 2 pints, and a gallon is 4 quarts. So the conversion factors aren't the same. With the SI system, though, you can see it's all factors of 10, and that's the premise of the SI system. Okay, so where do we see imperial units used? You will see a lot of different places where we still use the imperial system, even though we're not technically using the imperial system. So if you look on a real estate website and you're looking for how big a house is, you will often see it measured in square feet, not square meters. So a lot of people will say, "What's the square footage of this particular property?" In wood construction, wood lengths are measured. They're called 2x4s. They're measured in imperial units, 2 inches thick and 4 inches wide. If you ask somebody how tall they are, what their height is, the vast majority of people, even here in Canada, even though we're on the imperial system, so we should be saying it in centimeters, you'll see most people respond to that question with feet and inches. So if somebody asks you how tall you are, you're often going to say, in my case, I'm 6'5". Now I'm 196 centimeters. And actually, it's interesting if you look at your driver's license when you get it, or if you have a driver's permit. A lot of you are in grade 10, so you're not really old enough necessarily to have that yet, but you will see it actually lists your height in centimeters on your driver's license. But those are places where you see it fairly regularly. Okay, so it's helpful to kind of figure out what the imperial units, first of all, where did they come from and what are kind of approximate values for them, so you can judge what unit is best to use to measure something. So think about an inch is about from the tip of your thumb to the first joint. Now obviously that is not a standard measurement because some people's hands are bigger than other people's, and same thing with your feet. It's called a foot because it's approximately the length of your foot, but some people have an actual physical foot that's bigger than a measured foot, and some people have a little bit smaller. But the idea is you can kind of think about inch is a fairly small unit. Okay, it's about the size of that first joint to the tip of your thumb. Your foot is about a foot. It's not exact, obviously, but you were just approximating. And then your arm span is about a yard. So when you hold your arms fully out and you go from tip to tip, it's about a yard. Now again, some people have it longer than a yard, some people have it shorter than a yard, but that's the idea. And again, these come from imperial units were really related to the human body. That's where people originally measured things with. They sort of you talk about spans and cubits and things like that. They were measurements of the distance across from your finger to your thumb when you spread your hand out like that, or the distance from your tip of your finger to your elbow. Okay, so people used to use their bodies to measure things. Okay, now we don't. We have measurement tools like rulers and measuring tapes and those sort of things. But it's good to have an approximation in your mind about what each of those are. So, sort of other objects, sorry, that you might help you kind of figure out what a foot is or what an inch is if you look at a standard 3-ring binder, it's about a foot long. So if you sort of stand it up, it's about a foot. And a loonie is about an inch across. So if you sort of hold up a loonie, that's about an inch, and a kitchen counter is about a yard off the ground. Okay. So again, it's just to try to visualize a little bit of, somebody says, how many feet is that? And you kind of having a concept that a foot is the size of a 3-ring binder or the size of your foot, give or take, that you can kind of get an estimate of those things. All right. So we're just going to do a little bit of an exercise where that sort of helps you figure that out. So we're going to try to use the best unit to measure the length of certain things. Okay. And I'm going to get you to sort of answer, and then I'll tell you what the answer is. But it says, which of these is a better estimate for the length of a cell phone? 4 feet or 4 inches? Okay. So neither one is really accurate, probably, because 4 inches is only about, it's four of those if you look at the camera. So you're not exact, but it's definitely the better of the two because 4 feet, if you have a 4-foot cell phone, you're in trouble. All right. The length of a limousine. Okay, so you're looking at 24 feet is probably a more accurate representation. 24 yards would be, again, 3 feet per yard, right? So if you multiply that by 3, you're going to get 72 feet, and that's pretty far. So that makes more sense. The distance of a day-long hike, we're talking now in miles rather than inches. right? If it takes you all day to travel a foot, you have a problem, all right? 12 inches is 1 foot. The height of a fire hydrant, obviously not 2 miles, right? It's 2 feet. The length of a car, 4 feet's probably not the length of a car. You wouldn't fit in it very well, all right? So we're gonna say 4 yards, or about 12 feet, okay? And then the height of a ladder, probably not 17 miles long. So we're gonna say 17 feet, okay? But it just helps you kind of visualize what those are. And whoops, sorry, I jumped to the wrong slide. And then we want to talk about the international system as well, because it's also important that you know how to sort of define those things, those units, meters, centimeters, millimeters. What are those in terms of just everyday objects? So you kind of have an idea of what should I measure this in, all right? Now, the metric system was formally developed in France. That's why it's called the Système International de l'Unité. It's French, okay? And it has a base linear measure of a meter. And again, it's defined as base 10. Everything's sets of 10, okay? Now, a meter was defined in terms of the Earth's circumference. Mass was based on a gram, which was actually the measurement of how much weight, or how much mass, sorry, 1 cubic centimeter of water had. And then what we did in Canada, we decided to change, because Britain also used to use the imperial system. Because we were a colony of Britain originally, we used the imperial system. But in the 1970s, we were trying to expand to the world. And again, the whole idea of the Système International is that it gives us a single system that helps everybody talk in the same language, okay, in terms of sizes of things. And you might say, well, who cares in terms of sizes? But then sizes are also going to determine price, right? So if I'm going to say this is this much, and I need this much, and I will pay you this much, it becomes important that you're talking the same language, right? So that's why, that's sort of the history of it. That's why we adopted it. But in terms of just approximating them, you can kind of get an idea, again, from sort of everyday objects, or even from your body again. So a millimeter is the thickness of a dime. It's approximately the thickness of your thumbnail, okay, if you just look at your thumbnail, or it's the thickness of the point on a thumbtack, so the very edge, okay. A centimeter is about the width or the thickness, diameter of a crayon, the head of a thumbtack, or if you think about your thumb again, okay, or any of your fingers, it's the distance from across the fingernail, basically. And then a meter, you can kind of think of a meter as the width of a door, the height of a volleyball net, the bottom of the volleyball net, or the width of a sort of standard table is about a meter, okay? So again, we want to talk about what metric unit should we use, just so you can kind of have an idea of what makes sense. So if you're going to weigh a carrot, are we going to talk about 50 grams or 50 kilograms? Well, a carrot doesn't weigh very much, right? So we're going to say 50 grams, because 50 kilograms, a kilogram is 1,000 grams, right? So we're talking 5,000 grams, and that is a lot, okay? If you're talking conversion, just to sort of help you, there's 2.2 pounds in a kilogram, so 50 kilograms is over 100 pounds. And a carrot does not, if you have a carrot that weighs over 100 pounds, that's got to be some sort of Guinness World Record, probably, all right? So if we think about the weight of a goose, okay, the weight of a goose is probably 8 kilograms, not 8 grams, because 8 grams is a small goose, okay? The height of a giraffe, if you think about kilometers or meters, it's probably more obvious, I think, that that's 4 meters. A giraffe can't be 4 kilometers tall. And interestingly, with weight, sometimes we have more of a concept of pounds, all right, than we do of kilograms. But with distance, we're pretty good with kilometers, meters, and that sort of thing, all right? The weight of a rake, probably 1 kilogram. Okay, 1 gram would be an awful light rake. And then volume, probably going to be 2 liters for a container of orange juice or a carton of orange juice. All right, and we're pretty used to that one, is that when you buy them now, it's not exactly 2 liters, but you kind of get the idea. So that just helps you as you kind of think about what unit am I going to use. All right, now the question is, how do I convert? Okay, so we're going to talk about converting between imperial units, we're going to talk about converting between metric units, and then we're going to talk about converting between metric and imperial. And it's pretty simple. Okay, all you have to do is set up the ratio, and then I'll show you what I mean by that, and then just multiply, and you're done. So if you want to go 4 feet to inches, okay, you start with what you know, right? Meaning that there's 12 inches in 1 foot, and so I want to know how many inches there are, and I'm going to put an X there in 4 feet, okay? And then all we do is multiply up there and here, okay? So what we end up with is 48, right? 12 times 4 is equal to X. So there's 48 inches in 1 foot, okay? Or if you've taken any chemistry and you've talked about the factor label method, all right, there's another way of doing this. It's similar. I'm just going to show you. You can say 4 feet, and then you can say 1 foot. You want the units to cancel. In other words, you want the feet to divide out is 12 inches, okay? And then what you can do is the feet cancel, and you get 4 times 12 is 48 inches. Okay, so either way you get the same answer, and it's just a matter of how do you want to set up the ratio. You're used to doing this with scale factor from grade 9, so this might be more familiar to you, and that's great. This is something you're going to probably see, well, you will see for sure when you get into chemistry if you take chemistry. All right, so it's just a different way of doing unit conversion. Okay, same thing here. So convert 90 feet to yards. So what we're going to do, we're going to say I want yards, and I have 90 feet. I'm going to start with what I know. What I know is that 1 yard is 3 feet. Okay, and then I'm just going to multiply up here. So I'm going to go x is equal to 90 divided by 3. Okay, if you put x, I put x here, always on the top, then I always, instead of cross multiplying in terms of both of them, I don't have to multiply this guy up. I just leave it on the bottom and just multiply the denominator over there. And 90 divided by 3 is 30 yards. So 90 feet is 30 yards. Okay. The other way, again, just to show you, because you might find, I try to give you a couple methods because you might find one makes more sense to you than another. If I have 90 feet, we can say, let's convert that by saying there's 3 feet. We put the feet on the bottom and put yards on the top so that the feet actually divide out, and 90 divided by 3 is 30 yards. So you can do it either of those 2 ways. You will always get the same answer. Okay, both methods work. So that's how you convert between the imperial system. In other words, between the units in the imperial system. Now it says convert 4 yards 2 feet to feet. So what you notice is you've already got 2 feet. You don't need to convert that. You just need to convert 4 yards. All right. So we take 4 yards is how many feet? Okay. And we know that there's 3 feet in a yard. So we start with our ratio of what we know, and then we have x over 4 yards. We're going to multiply up. So we get x to be 4 times 3, which is 12 feet. Okay. So then we would say total, we would take the 12 feet that we found and add the 2 feet that we already have. So 4 yards is 12 feet plus another 2 feet. It's 14 feet total. Okay. Or again, up here you would just go, I want to take 4 yards and convert it to feet. So I'd say 4 yards, I get 1 yard, and then that's 3 feet. Okay. So that the yards cancel, and I go 4 times 3 and get 12 feet. So either way, it doesn't matter, again, how you do it, but you still get that 12 feet. Now, let's talk about the metric system. Very similar, okay, just different conversions. So I want to go 750 meters to kilometers. So what I do is I take 750 meters. I look at what I know. There's a kilometer, okay, 1 meter and 1 kilometer. So I say there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So if I take 750 meters in X kilometers, when I know that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. In other words, I just put meters on the bottom of both. So there's 750 meters on the bottom, 1,000 meters on the bottom, and then I multiply over it. So I get X to be 750 divided by 1,000. Okay, and that gives me 0.75 kilometers. So 750 meters is 0.75 kilometers. Again, you can also do, okay, so you can set up the ratio and cross multiply, which is what I'm doing here, or you can again, just if it makes more sense to you, 750 meters, and then you say there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. The meters cancel, and you get 750 divided by 1,000, and that gives you 0.75 kilometers. So either way, you will get the same answer. Okay, and ultimately, all of the unit conversions that we're going to do are the same methodology. You find the conversion factor. That's the big thing, and you're going to find it from a table, and then you're just going to use that as your ratio and find your answer. Okay, so if you're going to do this one, 2,500 grams to kilograms, 1,000 grams to kilograms. You can go, how many kilograms are 2,500 grams if, okay, 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So we just multiply this up, and we get X is 2,500 divided by 1,000, which is 2.5. Okay, or again, just to show you this, and I'm going to stop doing both methods in the further examples, because by now you can probably choose, but you would go 2,500 grams, and then you would say, put grams on the bottom, so 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram, and then you would divide out the grams, so 2,500 divided by 1,000 gives you 25 kilograms. Okay, again, same answer, and actually the same calculation. It's just a matter of thinking about how you get there. Okay, 650 milliliters to liters. If you look, 1 liter has 1,000 millimeters in it. Milliliters, sorry. So if we go X over 650 is 1 over 1,000. Okay, because our milliliters are on the bottom and our liters are up here. And we just multiply up. We get X to be 650 divided by 1,000. And that gives me 0.65, okay, liters. Or again, 650 milliliters. We put the milliliters on the bottom, so 1,000 milliliters. And we put the liters on the top. And if you divide those, you get 0.65 liters. Okay? And it doesn't matter what you're converting, that's the methodology. Okay, so let's just try a few of these. The only one that's weird is this one, is the Fahrenheit Celsius calculation. All right, so we'll look at that in a little more detail. But these conversions are conversions between the metric system and the imperial system. So now we're going from kilometers, which is an a metric unit, to miles, which is an imperial unit. So how do we go from one to the other? We look at 1 kilometer is 0.621 miles. So we would go 41.57 kilometers. Okay. We're going to get rid of kilometers. We're going to say 1 kilometer, and that's 0.621 miles. And then we're just going to multiply that. So we're going to grab our calculator to do this quickly, and we're going to take 0.621 multiplied by 415.7, so it gives me 258.1 miles, right? And again, I'm not doing it, that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is say X miles over 415.7 kilometers is equal to 0.621 miles over 1 kilometer. And then you would multiply up, and you get the same answer. Okay, kilograms to pounds. If you look at this, 1 kilogram has 2.2 pounds in it. So you're going to just take 2035.9. Okay, we want to know how many pounds are in that many kilograms. If there's 2.20 pounds in 1 kilogram, and then we're going to just multiply up. So we're going to get x to be 2.2 times 2035.9. And again, we're just going to take our calculator and do that. So 2.2 times 2035.9, it gives me 4478.98. Let's just round up to 44,479. Okay. A couple more conversions here. One is a volume. So we already did milliliters to liters, but you'll notice this one's now we're going to go to ounces. Okay, so we got to go back up here and look how do we go from milliliters to ounces? And here's the conversion. So we go 650 milliliters, and then I want to put milliliters on the bottom. Okay, so 1 milliliter and 0.0352 ounces. So the ounces are going to go on the top, and 1 millimeter is going to go on the bottom. Okay, so the milliliters are going to cancel, and if I multiply those, I'm going to get 650 times 0.0352, 22.88 ounces, or 22.9 ounces. Go to 1 decimal place. Now, this one is the weird one, okay, because this is degrees Celsius, and that's Fahrenheit. And instead of having a conversion factor, what you actually have is a formula, okay? So we're going to say Fahrenheit is equal to 9/5 of the Celsius temperature. Okay, that's what the C stands for. So the Celsius temperature here is 22. So we're going to put 22 in there, and then we're going to add 32. Now 9 over 5, if you do 9 divided by 5, it's 1.8. So you can actually write 1.8 instead. You're going to times it by 22 and add 32. And the Fahrenheit temperature is 71.6. Okay, degrees Fahrenheit. Now you'll notice actually where this comes into play is a lot of recipes. If I don't know how many of you bake or cook, but if you use your oven, you will notice a lot of recipes say put it on 350. That's degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, degrees Celsius obviously is a lot less than that, so you have to be careful in that conversion. That's kind of where we see Fahrenheit. You will also see if you watch any American television that has the weather report on it, all their temperatures are reported in Fahrenheit. So 70 degrees Fahrenheit is 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees. So if somebody's saying, you have a fever, even I don't know if you're sick and you have a fever, a lot of people say you don't want to have a fever over 100, right? 100 degrees, that's in Fahrenheit. In Celsius, it's 38. If you're over 38, you have a pretty significant fever. So it's a little bit different, that conversion, because you're using a formula, but it's a pretty simple formula to use. Okay, so I'm going to just leave it at that. If you look at these ones, you can try them on your own. So you can try to go from yards to meters. You can try to go from pounds to kilograms. Okay, you can try to go from ounces to milliliters, and then go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, you'll notice that formula looks just slightly different. Okay, and actually, let's just do that one. So Celsius temperature is 5/9 of the Fahrenheit temperature, which is minus 58, minus 32. Okay, so you have to do this as order of operations. So you're going to get minus 90. Okay, and so that's going to become minus, you divide those, minus 10 times 5, so you're going to get minus 50 degrees Celsius. Okay, and actually Fahrenheit and Celsius are the same at 40 degrees below zero. So that's the one place that they're the same. If you look at a thermometer, if you have one, you'll notice almost all of them have a designation on one side that's Celsius, and on the other side of the red stuff in the middle, whether it's mercury or something else, that measures the temperature. One side has the Fahrenheit scale and one has the Celsius scale. And what you'll probably notice if you look at those is the Fahrenheit scale is just much, much, much smaller. In other words, they jump much more quickly. All right, so there's a bunch more of these in the notes. You can just try them if you wish to, but these are all conversions from centimeters, meters, inches, feet, all that stuff, all the way down, okay? And there actually are 2 pages of these, but we'll leave it at that. That's how you do unit conversion. And you basically just, every time, find the unit conversion, the ratio, okay? Start with what you know, the ratio you know, and then set up either cross multiplication in terms of taking that denominator and multiplying it up to the other side, or using the what's called in chemistry the factor label method. Okay, and really it doesn't have to be in chemistry. It's just a way of doing unit conversion. So you can pick which one you like better, but we'll leave the video there.